今天要分享的改编故事是囊萤映雪，希望能在学习英语的路上给你带来收获。你的每个点赞和订阅都是对我莫大的鼓励。那么，咱们开始吧。
In the 4th century, during the Eastern Jin dynasty in ancient China, two boys grew up on opposite sides of the same dark problem. They had never met. They lived in different provinces, came from different families, and had never heard each other's names. But every night, when the sun went down and the world went black, they faced the same silent enemy: poverty. For a poor family back then, light cost money. Not just any money, oil money. You needed a lamp, and you needed fuel for that lamp. If you didn't have it, when the sun left, the world of books just disappeared. The words vanished into the darkness until the next sunrise. For most kids, that was just the way it was. You worked during the day, you slept at night, and you never thought about it. But these two boys were different. They couldn't let the words go. The first boy was named Chayin. His family was so poor that even the simplest things were luxuries. His father worked hard, but there was never enough for things like lamp oil. When evening came, Chayin had to stop reading. He would sit in the dark and try to remember the words he had seen during the day, reciting them over and over in his head until he fell asleep. One night in summer, the heat was thick and sticky. Chayin couldn't sleep. He sat outside his family's small hut, looking up at the sky and feeling frustrated. Another night wasted. Another night when he couldn't learn. And then he saw something. At first, he thought they were stars falling from the sky. Tiny points of light were floating across the field in front of him. Fireflies. Dozens of them. Hundreds. They blinked on and off, dancing in the warm air like little living lanterns. Chayin sat up straight. His heart started beating faster. What if? He ran inside and found an old piece of thin silk cloth. The kind of cloth that let light pass through. He grabbed it, along with a small pouch he had made from reeds. Then he ran outside into the field. He started catching the fireflies. One by one. Carefully, gently, so he wouldn't hurt them. He placed them inside the silk pouch. When he had gathered a few dozen, he tied the top closed and held it up. Light. It wasn't bright. It wasn't strong. But it was enough. If he held the pouch close to the pages, he could just barely make out the brush strokes. The words came back to him out of the darkness. That night, Chayin read until his eyes hurt and the fireflies grew dim. He didn't care. He had found a way. Night after night that summer, he caught fireflies and read by their light. While other kids slept, he studied. While the world was dark, he kept going. He read history. He read philosophy. He read poetry. All by the light of bugs in a bag. He grew up. He took the imperial exams. And he passed. Not just passed, he excelled. Chayin became a high-ranking official. He served the emperor. He became famous for his wisdom and his character. People would point at him and whisper, That's the man who read by fireflies, but 1,000 miles away, in the cold north, another boy was fighting the same war. His name was Sun Kong. Like Chain, Sun Kong came from a poor family. Like Chain, he loved to read. And like Chain, every night, the darkness took his books away. Winter in the north was brutal. The wind cut through the thin walls of his home. Sun Kong would go to bed early, not because he was tired, but because there was nothing else to do. No light. No reading. Just darkness and cold. One night, he woke up in the middle of the night. Something felt different. The room wasn't completely dark. There was a strange, pale glow coming through the paper window. He got up and looked outside. Snow had fallen during the night. Fresh snow, deep and white, covered everything. The moon was full and bright, and its light reflected off the snow, bouncing back into the sky and onto the ground. The whole world was lit up with a soft, silver glow. Sun Kong looked at his hands. He could see them. He looked at the ground. He could see every detail. He grabbed his book and ran outside. The cold hit him like a wall. His feet sank into the snow. His breath turned to ice in the air. But he could see. For the first time in months, he could actually see the words on the page at night. He stood there in the snow, shivering, turning pages with shaking fingers, reading by the light of the moon on the snow. When his feet went numb, he stomped them. When his fingers froze, he blew on them. But he kept reading. He read until the moon set and the light faded. After that night, Sun Kong watched the sky every day. He prayed for snow. And when it came, he was ready. He would go outside, stand in the freezing cold, and read for hours. The neighbors thought he was crazy. They would see him out there, a dark figure in a white field, book in hand, reading by starlight and snowlight. They shook their heads. But Sun Kong didn't care. He had found his light. He grew up. He passed the exams. He became a famous scholar. And later, he rose to become a high official too, a censor-in-chief, one of the most important positions in the government. Here's where the story gets interesting. For 1,000 years, everyone believed these stories. Parents told them to their kids. Teachers told them to their students. Chain and Sun Kong became symbols. If they could study like that, people said, then you have no excuse. But then, during the Ming Dynasty, about 500 years after the two boys lived, someone started asking questions. A writer named Fu Bai, who collected jokes and funny stories, decided to play with the tale. He imagined what would happen if Chain and Sun Kong actually met. In his version, Sun Kong goes to visit Chain one summer day. He knocks on the door. Chain isn't there. His wife says, he's out in the field catching fireflies. Come back tonight when it's dark and he's done reading. Then, in winter, Chain goes to visit Sun Kong. He gets to the village and sees Sun Kong standing in the snow, staring up at the sky. Chain asks, "What are you doing? Why aren't you inside reading?" Sun Kong says, I'm waiting for the snow to start. I can't read without it. It was a joke. But it made people think. Then, during the Qing dynasty, the Kangxi Emperor, one of the greatest emperors in Chinese history, decided to run an experiment. He was a smart man. A scientist at heart. He didn't just believe things because people told him to. He ordered his servants to catch hundreds of fireflies. They put them in a big silk bag. The emperor took the bag into a dark room, opened a book, and held the bag close to the pages. And nothing happened. He could barely see a thing. The light was too weak. It flickered too much. It was impossible to read that way for more than a few seconds without getting a headache. The emperor was angry. He felt like he had been lied to his whole life. He wrote an imperial decree, an official statement from the emperor himself, telling people that the story couldn't be true. He said students shouldn't believe everything they read in books. So what's the truth? Maybe the stories are exaggerated. Maybe Chain only caught a few fireflies, just to feel like he was doing something. Maybe the light wasn't for reading, it was for hope. Or maybe, just maybe, the real story isn't about the light at all. Think about it. Chain lived in a time when social class determined everything. If you were born poor, you died poor. The system was designed to keep you down. But Chain found a way up. Sun Kong did the same. They didn't have money. They didn't have connections. They didn't have powerful relatives. All they had was the desire to learn. The fireflies didn't give Chain light. They gave him an excuse to stay awake, to keep fighting, to not give up. The snow didn't give Sun Kong warmth. It gave him a reason to go outside, to push through the pain, to prove to himself that he could do it. When they stood for the exams, they weren't just answering questions. They were standing there as proof that a poor kid could beat the system. They had done what everyone said was impossible. That's why their story survived. Not because of the bugs. Not because of the snow. Because of what those things represented. And here's the part they don't tell you in the history books. Chain rose to become Minister of Personnel. One of the most powerful men in the empire. He was in charge of hiring and firing officials all across China. He had money. He had status. He had lamp oil. He never had to catch another firefly in his life. But when people came to him asking for favors, when powerful families tried to buy his influence, when rich men offered him bribes to give their sons good jobs, he remembered the fireflies. He remembered standing in the dark, holding a bag of bugs, fighting for every single word. And he said no. He became famous not just for his learning, but for his honesty. He refused to play the game. He refused to sell out. He had fought too hard to get where he was, and he wasn't going to let the system corrupt him. That's the part that matters. The fireflies didn't just light up his books. They lit up his character. Sun Kong did the same. When he became censor-in-chief, his job was to investigate corruption. To go after powerful people who broke the rules. It was a dangerous job. People hated him for it. They threatened him. They tried to ruin him. But every time they came at him, he remembered the cold. He remembered standing in the snow, shivering, refusing to go inside. If he could survive that, he could survive anything. He kept going after the corrupt officials, no matter who they were. The snow didn't just light his books. It froze his principles into place. Now, here's my question for you. What's your firefly? What's the thing that keeps you going when the world goes dark? Maybe you're learning English right now. Maybe it's hard. Maybe you feel like you're not making progress. Maybe people around you don't understand why you're doing this. They say, "Why bother? You're too old. You're too busy. It's too hard, you need your own firefly. Your own snow." It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be bright. It just has to be enough to read the next page. Enough to take the next step. Enough to stay in the fight. Because here's the truth they don't tell you in the stories. Chaein and Sun Kong didn't succeed because of fireflies or snow. They succeeded because they refused to let the darkness win. They found their light, wherever it was, and they held on to it. You can too. Maybe you'll never be a minister or a censor. Maybe you'll never take an imperial exam. But you'll face your own darkness. You'll face the nights when you want to quit, when it feels pointless, when the words blur and nothing makes sense. In those moments, remember the boy with the bugs. Remember the boy in the snow. They didn't have what they needed. But they used what they had. And so can you. So what's your firefly? Find it. Catch it. Hold it close. And read by its light until the sun comes up.
下集请移步主页观看。